Attention. Get everybody's attention. We've got a quorum. We've got a lot to do today. A lot of meetings going on here at the last minute. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And I guess I'll do chairman's privilege and do the invocation today since I've asked other members all year. We do have a slot on Friday at 8 a.m. as well if we need it because we've got a lot to do. Yes. A lot of talking. You'll be here Friday is what I'm saying. All right. Well, let me go ahead and give us the invocation. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for all that you've done for us, all you've blessed us with. You've been so good to us in so many ways, and we ask that you give us wisdom and discernment today in what we do, that we could do it for the people of Georgia, and we could do things according to your will. We ask all this in your name. Amen. So House Bill 136 is a combination bill. We had seen Chairman Strickland's bill earlier in the year on the tax credit he did and passed it out. We've done a couple of changes to it. In addition, we've added other components to it. I sent everybody to your office ahead of time a packet that listed all this in a summary. I'm not sure how many of you got it and have been able to read it and stuff. So Representative Newton, let's go first with your part of the bill, if you would.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I can't say I'm honored to be here today, but especially because we get to add to a bill. I get to be the bill that carries some good Senate tax policy, and in particular, that takes care of children. My bill, House Bill 136, is obviously.
That's good. I haven't said another word. Good bill.
Obviously, you guys had the study committee, Senate Bill 89, I think 49-0. Some excellent tax policy, I think, that for Georgia families and those, in particular, those with children. And so I'm excited about that being going along with my bill, which is one we've looked at for a couple of years. House Bill 136 deals with foster care and how we can take care of the young people that have been in state overview or parental role as a foster parent, but how they can be they care for even though they turn 18 and they officially age out of our foster care program. So my portion of the bill, the fostering success portion, really enhances the effectiveness of a successful tax credit program that's been supporting these youth as they age out of foster care. So I can go through the particular lines that will be on, I think you mentioned the LC number, 501248S. We're all working off the same one. Is that right, Chairman?
That's correct.
All right. So we do have some, the overview of it is obviously it's a program to recognize that these youth, even though they're out of our foster care and they're not technically kids anymore after 18, just like many of our own children, they still need both guidance as well as financial support for things like tuition, food, transportation, all the things, housing, all the things that can be necessary to making a successful transition to adulthood. But many times these are missing in our children as they age out of the foster care program. So this bill just enhances that ability. A key portion of it is mentorship. So I'll go through some of the lines that have been adjusted in this Senate substitute, if that's what you'd like me to do.
Yeah, just go through it, in summary form. Everybody got it ahead of the meeting and have read it, and I gave them a summary on it.
And we've discussed it before. As I mentioned, we did clarify on 148 through 150. We defined mentorship, kind of to make it more clear, and we did down in 171 through 174, we wanted to make sure these are volunteer positions. This is not necessarily a paid role. These are people who have a passion, who have a heart for these children that have been in foster care, and that's why we do want to make sure it is largely a volunteer program with just some offsetting expenses. The bill does increase the tax credits to $30 million, up to $30 million a year, and it does expand the number of and types of companies that can participate in this. We do have some important provisions.
I think it's $20 million the first year and then goes up to 30, doesn't it?
Correct.
If I remember right.
It's $20 million now. Sorry.
The print's tiny on this. I'm gonna have to pull my reading glasses out to be sure on that.
I'm just looking to see if we changed.
2025 is 20 million, then it goes up to 30 million.
What line are you on, sir, if you don't mind?
It's 185.
Sorry.
And I'll jump in here and say that, Chairman Strickland's part did change a little bit, so he needs to address that. But trying to, respect the extremely difficult job our Chairman of Appropriations has with what the House sent over to him. We have tried to we've carved some stuff back so that we would keep it the same number that we had originally in his bill. So that we made a few changes to that,
Right, I
trying
did
to
see-
keep the credit the same amount. Okay,
And finally, the effort to ensure accountability lines 346 to 355, trying to require organizations annually to prove their dedication to this population, ensure they're using a minimum of 80% of all the proceeds that are received by this in actual direct spending on the former foster child's tuition, food, transportation, everything else we've discussed. So those are some of the larger changes. We do have a couple of lines in 401 through 403 that they can be carried over for up to 3 years on this. There is a approval on lines 226 through 229 that if a taxpayer receives pre-approval for a certain amount of tax credits but then doesn't donate that entire amount, they drop from 100% tax credit down to 95%. I think that's correct. That's
all right, and there was a lot of work put into this by Lieutenant Governor's office. Chairman Blackman worked on this as well as you and Chairman Strickland. I know y'all worked hard on this. I was hoping to get to it a little bit earlier, but there's been continued work on it, and I appreciate everybody's
two
work.
important policies. Obviously, the study committee the Senate had on affordable child care, reaching out to that for that section. I'll defer to.
All right, Chairman Tiller, you got a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Newton. You mentioned the 80% threshold, so $20 million, 80% has to go for eligible expenses.
A minimum. We hope some of them will spend less on administrative and efforts, but that's the minimum, correct?
That's kind of where I was gonna ask, would you be amenable to going to 90%?
We have, there's a recognition that taking care of youth, even though these are over 18, largely, there are a lot of demands on the organizations for, let's just say, making sure they have the right background checks and everything that's required. It's not an expense-free zone. We had actually looked at 90% and had dealt with that for a while, and we're leaning that way. We did get in touch with many of the organizations, and with a recognition that even 80% is a challenge to run an organization with, background checks on mentors. Even though they're volunteers, they'll have to have background checks, arranging the tuition, assisting with grants that the youth may be eligible for. I'm certainly open to 90%. I think these organizations are very frugal already.
Probably close to exceeding that when they use other funds that they could use to supplant with now the child caring organization.
I'll defer to the will of the committee.
Just thought. Thank you.
All right, well, let's move to Chairman Strickland's part.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Chairman Newton, Chairman Blackman, Lieutenant Governor's office. I'll be really brief. Y'all have heard this before. It's our Affordable Child Care Study Committee bill that we did, Senate Bill 89. The changes are, as you said, trying to get back to sticking with the fiscal impact this will have. Section 1, the three parts of it, looking at the current federal tax credit for child and dependent care expenses. We increased that from 30% in the bill to 40% of the federal match. Section 2, with the new tax credit we're creating for those with younger children to make up some of the ground, the rest of these changes, we moved that from under the age of 7 to under the age of 6, where the kids that will qualify for that. So parents with kids under the age of 6 instead of 7 from the original bill. And lastly, the employer paid side of things. The original bill contemplated expanded the existing tax credit for employers that offer child care for their workers. This one goes back, and I think will actually make it more applicable for more workers, more employers in our state, where you have employers that can't afford to offer child care for their workers, but they now will have a tax credit for $1,000 for payments they make for their workers for child care. It has a $20 million cap put into it. It's $1,000 for payments made on behalf of that employee in the first year, and $500 in each subsequent years as well. So I think when we're said and done, I think we actually have a better bill, in my opinion, than the original Senate Bill 89, and this will be a good first step in helping our working moms and dads trying to afford childcare for their kids.
And a couple of changes, I know we were looking at under 7, and to try to keep it within the cost, we went to under 6.
Right.
And then, we actually had gone to 50%, I believe, from 30 to 40 to 50% in the latest version.
You're right. My note said 40, but it goes from 30 to 50.
Yeah.
Went
All
up
right.
there. And
Senator
the
Rhett?
childcare expenses.
Yes, I was going to say this is a good bill, and I like it. But I was going to ask you, is this your first time for the finance?
When I presented the first time it was, this is now my second time in front of Senate Finance.
Okay.
You want to haze me, though, you still can. I know you have lots of time for that.
Yeah, we don't today, that's for sure. Okay, any other questions anybody has, we can entertain.
I'll make a motion.
Motion and
Do pass?
second.
Do I make a
Lines that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make one amendment and want to make sure Chairman Newton, I'm in the right spot. You're at line 341 that no more than 20% of the qualified contributions be retained. Change that to be that no more than 10%. I think that's the way you brought it out of the House too. Am I correct?
I believe we had, we made that, and then it got changed back. But no, I'm fine, I consider that a friendly amendment.
Why not? Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
still making a motion.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion.
There's a few other places that it falls. It falls on 333, 351, 373, and 368. Would change it from 80 to 90.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any other amendments offered? Let me check with alleged counsel. Are we properly? Oh, good, you're at the table. Just stay there.
Okay,
Everything's good on it?
I think so.
Okay. So we'll vote on the amendment first. All in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All right, looks like the amendment passes. Those opposed, we've got 2 noes on it. All right, so now we're down to the underlying bill. All in favor of the bill, raise your hand. All right, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We're done with y'all too, and I guess we'll see you in rules. And y'all were, Strickland's the Senate sponsor on that, and y'all are experienced pros and know how to handle rules already, I'm pretty sure, so.
Dr. Newton does.
For everybody else, be sure you turn in a rules request if you pass out of here. All right, a lot of papers of support in this one. Let me move down the folder here. All right, Representative Deloach, you want to come forward? 532. I don't think, have you been in this committee before, recent years, or?
No, Mr. Chairman, not since I took my 16-year hiatus, but I did that a long time ago. The last time I was in here, Senator O'Rourke was a member of the House.
All right, so tell us what your bill does here.
If you look at it, it's really pretty simple. On page 2, line 40 and 41, it strikes that part of that code section, and on the last page of your bill, it strikes like wording. And let me give you a little bit of background, if I might, Mr. Chairman. I'll do it rapidly. In 1964, a representative named Harry Dixon from Ware County passed a bill, and the purpose of which was to replace lost ad valorem tax revenue in counties where they were significantly impacted by state ownership of land. That was subject to annual appropriations, obviously, and it was never funded except for Ware County. And so some years later, we came along and at least passed a bill through the Department of Natural Resources so counties could be reimbursed for work that they do on state-owned property. And that was funded over some period of time. Last year, for the very first time, we funded the forestry part of that bill, which allowed counties to be reimbursed for lost ad valorem tax revenues. They're not fully reimbursed. It's still subject to an annual appropriation, and it's prorated among counties that submit their tax bill to the Department of Forestry. We now reach a situation, since the current code excludes you from getting one of those grants if you get the other. So counties now are getting the forestry grant to replace their lost tax revenue, but they're not being reimbursed for the work they actually do on state-owned property. And the code's very carefully worded so that they cannot receive more than they would charge some other entity for the work that they do. So they can't pump up the cost of that. So
This money's coming out of what fund here?
there are two funds. One is forestry, and as I said, it depends on annual appropriations. And the other is the Department of Natural Resources, and that's to reimburse counties for work they do on government land, state-owned land only.
Okay. All right. And the Department of Natural Resources, what part of their budget is that? Where does that funding come from? Anything particular, or?
Yes, there's a specific line in their budget for that grant money.
All right, that's what I was trying to get you to get to. Okay, Senator Dola's on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you.
We were just looking at the budget here, and there's I think the House budget had a line item for this piece of legislation at $641,000. Is that that's obviously the state portion. I think that maybe what the chairman's trying to get to, that I'd like to ask as well, is how much in addition to that is the DNR portion?
Okay, that item you see is in addition to a continuation item for the forestry grant to replace lost tax revenue. I don't think there's anything in the current budget for DNR. And it would have to be put in there next year, and that's the first time the counties would receive that. But the county that gets by far the largest amount is, they do all the work on Sapelo Island, road work, pulling ditches, and there are a lot of roads there. So their part's about 400,000, so the total amount would be probably 600,000 or 700,000.
So the 641 we added, and then there's base budget money in there as well. And then you said I'm just confused on the actual number. What am I missing here?
There's a base amount in the forestry budget in the continuation, and the House added the 600 and some odd thousand because they've received forestry has received bills from the various counties where their digest has gone up, so they're billing for that additional amount this year over last year.
I see. Is this one-time funding then that y'all added, or would this get then moved into the base budget as well, the 641?
It went into the base amount went into continuation last year, but it's subject to change every single year.
Okay.
Senator Albers.
Confused by that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Deloach, always great to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
Question, we've passed, or it's going through different parts of the Chamber's, the Trees Act to help with some of this. Can you tell me how this may either connect or not connect?
The forestry part does, because it deals with that special grant program where you can buy this land, and they're continuing to buy this land. In fact, they added another 1,000 acres in McIntosh County this year. And as you know, a lot of that is riverfront, and in some counties it's actually beachfront. It's incredibly valuable property in some of these counties, and the general evaluation is much less than it would be on the commercial market.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Senator Tillery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Deloach, good to see you. Let me see if I can walk it through here. I think I understand. The state has two different funding programs, correct?
Correct.
In DNR, we fund a program that reimburses counties for work they do with county employees on state property, correct?
County employees and equipment.
Right. We may run our motor graders on state wildlife refuge roads, and we pay the counties for doing that on our behalf,
That's
correct?
correct. Picking up garbage, all the things they do.
We have a separate program that if the state owns more than 20,000 acres in your county, we help pay part of your millage rate as a recognition that we're taking a lot of your tax base off the rolls, correct?
That is correct. In fact, both of these programs require that the state own more than 20,000 acres.
We also have a provision in the law that says if we are reimbursing you for your millage rate because we owe more than 20,000 acres, that we can't pay you when your motor grader runs down our wildlife refuge area, correct?
That's correct.
And what you're moving to do is to strike the provision that says we can't pay you under both codes, correct?
Yes, because
So-
in reality, what happens if we cease to do that, then the counties will cease to do that work. They just can't, many of these counties just can't afford to do it. They're very poor counties.
If the motor graders were running down a wildlife refuge area right now that was less than 20,000 acres, well, I don't want to ask that question. Never mind.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the committee? Everybody feel comfortable with the knowledge here? I know we're trying to go through the numbers and get an understanding of it here. Senator Hodges.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, well, I don't see any other questions, so,
I move to pass.
all right, we've got a motion to pass. Is there a second? Second by Senator Orrock. Any other discussion? All in favor of this, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, opposed? We've got 6 to 4. Looks like you squeaked by.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Who's your Senate sponsor?
Senator Hodges.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go next to House Bill 370. I guess, Senator Newton, you still here, or? He might have left with the Insurance Department, can certainly explain this. I know this is language from a bill he had. Y'all made a couple of changes. I've gotten a little bit better familiar with these plans. Also, I know there was a comment about picking winners and losers by going up to 10. The sub here now has it going up to 50, which at 50, I believe, is when employers have to provide coverage. So it's not really picking winners and losers. This is a small amount. The insurance commissioner feels like basically this is a test pilot. He feels like he can do something with it. So that's going to be the will of the committee if they want to move forward on this. So I don't know if everybody was here for the previous one, but give us a quick summary of the bill.
Yes, sir, and thank you for allowing us to come speak to House Bill 370. My name is Bryce Rawson. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Insurance Commissioner's Office. Beside me, I have Martin Sullivan. He is our Chief of Staff over the Insurance Commissioner's Office. Just to kind of go over very briefly what this bill does, this legislation incentivizes small businesses to offer health insurance coverage to their employees by providing a tax credit per employee that is enrolled in an ICHRA. ICHRA is short for Individual Coverage Health Reimbursement Arrangement, and that's a health insurance plan where an employer provides employees with tax-free reimbursements for health insurance premiums and or other medical expenses. Employers in this bill, they are required to contribute at least $100 per month to an employee that is enrolled in an ICHRA for the first 3 years, and you'll see this online, beginning on line 33. The tax credit is going to be at $600 per covered employee, and then That's for the first 3 years. On the fourth year, it drops to $400, and in the fifth year, it drops to $200. The cap for this program is set at $5 million per year. That is a hard cap. It does not increase. And there is a 5-year sunset provision in this bill. And that is a very brief summary of what this legislation does.
All right, and, let's see, there's one other thing I thought, one other change I thought we made. Oh, one other point, I guess it was that, we're not stacking any tax credits on this.
That is correct. This committee did ask us if there were any federal tax credits for this program, and there are currently not.
All right, Senator Dolezal.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you guys for being here. I think you guys have got me some answers to questions from before. Thank you for doing that. One of which I think is that, just to confirm for the committee, there's no existing federal credit that this comes alongside of, correct?
That is correct.
So help me understand the flow of funds here. If I'm an employer, as long as I give $100, this would be essentially a cash payment to my employee into this ICHRA account that allows them to go buy insurance, correct?
Yes, it is, very similar to just a traditional health reimbursement arrangement where you put it into that account.
So-
And then the employee, they would submit, premium payments or qualified medical expenses and then get
Through
that
the
distribution.
administrator. So if I do $1,000 as the employer, sorry, $1,200 as the employer, the state is going to give me, the employer, back $600. Is that correct, or does the $600 go to the employee?
That goes to the employer themselves, and that is a one-time distribution per year. So you would get, if you had 2 employees, that would be covered. You get $1,200.
Okay. Help me understand how that kind of helps seed the program. Is the thought, what are these employers doing right now typically? What are you seeing them do?
So most of these employers aren't offering any type of insurance. So this is a way we hope to entice them to look as another option to add people to our risk pool currently in Georgia Access.
So in the ICHRA account for the employee, if they're only getting $100 a month from the employer, that's not obviously enough for them to purchase insurance. Do they then contribute into the ICHRA account, and is that a pre-tax contribution for them?
For the employees,
Employee, correct.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
That is my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Senator Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gents, you mentioned there was no federal tax credit. Is that true?
To the best of our knowledge, yes, sir.
You ever heard of the small business health care tax credit?
Yes, sir. So this is just a little bit different. So you're speaking of SHOP plans. That is small business health options programs. And that is for group plans themselves. And what ICHRA's target are employers that may not want to offer group plans to their employees.
Looks like it will give you the option of also doing that outside of the plans, based on what I'm reading here on the IRS website.
It is our understanding that that SHOP plans, that the tax credit you can get from that is a small business healthcare tax credit, only goes towards group plans.
So is that,
Not sure about
that's
that.
available for any level?
Right,
When
but-
it says small tax credit, who's that, what category of employers employees is that?
25 or less.
25 or less, okay. All right. So yours would be, they could set up basically like a health savings account as well with that money? Or can they use that to purchase on the exchange?
They would use it to purchase on the exchange. State exchange. Yes.
Which I guess we're not putting any money into it all right now, are we? Isn't that 100% federal funded?
Yes, sir, through a percent based off of every insurance policy sold in the state.
Okay. So the question is, do we, would these be stacking? And so I'm not sure we're there yet on that, so we may have to defer
So
them.
I can say SHOP is a different system, and we only currently have one carrier that chooses to write in the SHOP network. And it is, I believe, Kaiser is the only person writing in the SHOP network currently.
All right, Senator Estevez.
My understanding is the same as yours, that the tax benefits, there's a tax benefit for the employee in that it doesn't count towards income. So I think that answers the senator's question there. There is a tax benefit for the employer in that, one, it's an expense, and two, you don't have to pay payroll taxes. So you're saving some money there. This would provide an additional incentive to offer these plans. And I think for those small business owners that are trying to come up with any kind of benefit to keep quality staff, this would help them with that.
Very much so, Senator.
And it seems like this program would be more like a pilot program in that it would potentially benefit roughly 8,300 people,
Yes, sir.
right? So small businesses would apply, or what's the, if I want to get folks on this credit, is there an application like we do with some of the other tax credits, or what do y'all envision the process being?
So there is language for the tax credit itself that is on page 3 that kind of details how they're going to apply. Our office would be promulgating the rules and regulations for obtaining those tax credits. And I think it's important to note that ICRAs exist right now. You can go right now. It's just that this is a program that is not currently utilized. And that's what we were trying to incentivize here.
Hold on, say that one more time.
So ICRAs, you can already, as an employer, get into one, but there's currently no incentive to enter into this type of relationship. Yes.
I think the incentive. So ICRA has been around, and I've looked at it for my small businesses. The issue is that the payroll tax savings and the expense is not really that big of a benefit, significant of a benefit. Now, admittedly, this might incentivize folks. I certainly think about it, and it's like, it might make more sense. So I agree with you on that this helps folks potentially do more investments like this. So it's certainly something to take a look at and try out.
All right. Let's see, Senator Dole is on. I think you had a question.
I just want to clarify two things. One, as I understand the benefit of an ICRA plan is you're creating a wrapper, a pre-tax wrapper for the employee to also contribute to purchase their health care. Right now, if they just receive a stipend from their employer and they have to go buy health insurance on the free market, that is not a pre-tax savings to them. So you're creating this pre-tax envelope in which they can purchase. That's the primary benefit, which is not insignificant.
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering, and I don't know, I don't want to tweak with this too much, but the 50% return to the employer does seem, I just wonder if y'all had thought about requiring them to pay $200 a month into the plan in order to get the $50 back. It would allow you to double the people that could participate in the plan, but still is a better deal than the employer is going to get anywhere else. Giving them back 50 cents on the dollar does seem a little aggressive. Was there any? Obviously, we're always picking numbers somewhat out of thin air. Is that essentially what this was, or was there another reason that number came about?
It was just very similar to what Indiana had done this before.
Okay.
But we would certainly be open to the committee.
Did theirs sunset, and did it stay sunsetted, or is it still in effect?
I do not. It just passed last year. I do not believe it had a sunset, but I could be wrong. It's been a few months since I looked at their legislation.
Fair enough. Thank you.
And I don't know what the committee wants to do on this, but I think there's still some questions. We might even look at a shorter sunset if it was the will of the committee. I don't know if you ought to be amenable to maybe a 3-year instead of a 5-year or something.
Yes, sir.
And maybe the percentage change like Senator Dolezal talked about. So we'll go ahead and, I guess, entertain a motion. We got to keep moving on and see what the will of the committee is. Senator Estevez.
Move do pass, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Senator Rhett seconded the motion. Any other discussion? Anybody want to offer any amendments, or Senator Dolazon?
Try to think the most artful way to do what you just mentioned, Mr. Chairman, to bring this to 3 years. I will ask the gentleman, this did not, we're getting some texts from people. Did this pass the House?
It passed out of committee from the House.
Okay,
It did not pass. It did not pass on the floor.
Okay.
But it did not. It was not called up for a vote.
okay. I suppose it's clean enough, Mr. Chairman, just to change the date to a 3-year provision, which would be 2029. However, we do have 4-year language in here, but I think changing the sunset would just kind of render that moot anyway. And if it did get extended, it would actually allow then the 4 and 5 year step down, right? Would that be
Yes, sir.
the better way to do it?
I'm getting a nod from Ledge Council. if
Okay,
that's
so I would make a motion to amend line 69 to change. So if this goes into effect at the start of 26, all of 26, 27, and 28, I would like this to sunset then at December 31st of 2028, which would
All
allow
right,
3
so
years.
we've got a motion to amend it. We've got a second
69,
from
yeah.
Senator Estevez. Any other discussion, any other amendments? Senator Tillery?
Mr. Chairman, just wondering what the will of the committee is concerning the provision that would take it from being a 50% reimbursement to 25. Do we want to stay at the? I'm not certain that I know what I would want to do right now at that, but interested in the discussion of the group on that. What we would do is you'd go to line 33, 35, and 37, and you change it from 400 to 300 per covered employees.
Yeah.
Thanks.
If you just change this to 200, that solves your problem.
Then you could then take in double in the amount. You could do it that way, and that's even easier.
It gets more money in the employees' account that way.
Okay,
On line
so
25 to $200 a month.
You wanna offer an amendment on that? We'll discuss it.
For the
but-
purpose of discussion, I'll offer the
Sure.
amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there a second to that? Second, Senator Hodges, okay. Discussion, Senator Estevez.
Yeah, I'm putting my business hat on, taking my legislator hat off. I've looked at ICRA plans before, did not see enough weighing the cost of it with the benefit. Didn't really see it. When I saw this bill, I was like, I can see myself going towards it and participating. If it's a quarter of the savings, you're getting closer to questioning whether it's beneficial from the cost benefit analysis of it. But that's just my gut reaction when I saw the original bill. I was like, oh, this might actually make some folks actually move. If you say you have to invest $200 an employee, you have 20 employees. That's that's a lot of money a month, and that changes. That might change the calculation significantly. Just my thought.
All right, so we've got 2 amendments. I guess we'll go the second amendment first. How do we do that? Does it matter? Okay, we'll do the sunset of 3 years first. All in favor of changing it to a 3-year sunset, raise your hand. Okay, opposed? Were you opposed? Okay, one opposed, so that amendment carries. Now the amendment that would change it to 25% instead of 50%. Yeah, quickly, because we got to move.
I'm mindful of the contribution that Senator Estevez made as a person who has a small business that's about a year old or 2 now. And if you want this, we're already reducing the window of the pilot, and then you want, it's almost like you're crippling it before you get enough of a track record to understand its value. And so that, for
No,
that reason.
I understand your
Yeah,
comments, and
sure.
those are offered. Okay, so the second amendment, all in favor, raise your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 opposed. We've got 3 opposed, so both amendments carried. We're back to the underlying bill. All in favor, raise your hand. Looks like an opposed. We've got 2 opposed. Motion carries. You got a bill out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On to the rules, and make sure y'all work with the rules. Now, we'll have to get with you on a Senate sponsor. I know this was originally, I believe it was Chairman Newton's language
sir.
was, and I should have told him to stay for this, but since the bill number was changed, I guess he didn't catch that.
No worries, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. All right, Representative Jaspers. All right, present your bill to us. Let's see, I believe you got some numbers in here too on geothermal.
Yes, sir.
So LC 50-1178S, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is my first time I've been to this committee in 15 years. I haven't had the opportunity to be here. And so I'm glad to be here today. I have along with me Steve Wetzel, and we'll let him introduce himself when he makes his comments. Bring for your consideration House Bill 248, which allows Georgians to utilize, or if they choose to, geothermal technology to heat and cool their homes. This technology will allow families who take advantage to save an average of 46% on their heating and cooling and hot water bills while leveling out the annual power utility demand in our state, which I think is very important. What is this? Geothermal heating and cooling is using specialized equipment. It has a well driller to drill a well, excavators to dig trenches to bury the loops, and the contractors to plumb it, and the HVAC people to do it. It's 3 times the amount of workers that work on this. It is proven to be the most efficient way to cool a home. On line 4034, you'll see that bill will allow 25% state income tax on the installation expenses of a residential geothermal system. Of course, the cost will depend on the size of the home. These run about $10,000 per ton. On line 36, the credit shall only be applied for 5 years and not exceed $5,000 for each taxable year. And it has a 5-year sunset at an aggregate cap of $2.5 million per year. It does help homeowners save up to 40% on their heating and cooling. It'll grow jobs in our state, just like, and I found it very interesting to find out that the average salary for HVAC technicians is $65,000 a year. I think one thing I learned about this when I started looking into it is it will help reduce the electrical power demand. And that's one thing I think we've all talked about in the hallway and everywhere. There is a physical note that's attached to this. That reflects the first bill. Representative Blackman, Chairman Blackman worked with me, added caps, good things like that. So it really doesn't have effect on this bill now. Like I said, there's a $2.5 million per year cap and $12.5 million for the total 5-year program. Also in the sub, you'll see at the very end on line 46, the Department of Revenue added, fortunately, a good part how this would work in their world.
So you've got a, if I can interrupt at this point, so you've got a 25% tax credit and $5,000 per year.
Yes, sir.
So that would be over 5 years, maximum of $25,000.
Yes,
If
sir.
the system was $100,000.
Sure.
If it's $50,000, then it would be $12,500
Yeah.
credit. Now, what's the federal credit right now?
I don't know that there is one. Do you have, Mr. Wetzel?
Yeah, the current federal credit is 30%.
Okay. I knew the answer. I just wanted to make sure y'all did. So. All right. So what's the typical cost of one of these systems?
Typical cost.
Tell them who you are and who you represent.
Yeah, I should have had that done.
Steve Weitzel. I'm the Director of Utility and Energy Programs for Intertech Global. We are a ground source heat pump manufacturer headquartered in Greenville, Illinois. and have manufacturing in South Dakota and Illinois, and so we're American made.
All
So,
right.
you know, the average cost of a geothermal system we estimate is around $10,000 per ton. So, a typical home could be anywhere from 3 to 4 tons based on the size of the home. So, you know, that's $30,000 to $40,000.
All right, and then the typical bill, looking at your numbers here, well, I thought I saw some numbers, maybe it's on the second page. So what's the savings per month on a typical system?
The average savings for an individual is about 49%, up to 49% of their entire power bill. 70% of your home's energy consumption is heating, cooling, and hot water. And those are the three pieces we can impact with the geothermal system. So.
All right. Senator Albers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great to see you, my Cherokee delegation mate. We met and I discussed the technology, and I love new technology. In fact, I got a pond in the back of my house, and they're, I think, one of the best ways to use this.
Yes.
But my concern is us subsidizing it. You know, as an example, we had many bills in my 15 years. People want to subsidize solar power. Do the same thing. There's already a federal tax credit. Obviously, there's a federal tax credit for this. My concern is we pick winners and losers in different technology that's out there, different things. We'll have folks who want to put small windmills in their house and want a tax credit for that next. So I love the technology. I'm just concerned to what end do we keep giving somebody an incentive to do something as opposed to just making the economics work and falling into kind of traditional capitalism.
Yes, sir. So I can appreciate your comments. One of the things that in our industry is everyone in this room has heating, cooling, and hot water. And that's exactly what our technology can impact, is how much demand you are placing on the grid as an individual. And we're all facing capacity issues across this country. Demand is expected to increase by 16% over the next 4 years. GE, their gas turbine division, they're booking sales into 2029 now, soon to be 2030. So when you look at capacity, there's only two ways to get it. One, you generate it, or two, you reduce your demand. And that's what our technology does, where others do not do that. We provide capacity exactly when the electric providers need it the most, and that's at peak.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Tillery.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did you say, I want to make sure I got some numbers right. You said about $10,000 per ton, and it can be between 3 and 5 tons per house is what your average?
Yeah, I mean, we can get into like heat
Right.
load calculations to properly
yeah,
size
and
the system.
I guess there's only one other piece of data I needed. Did you say it's a 30% federal tax credit?
It is currently a 30% federal tax credit, and it steps down in years 2033 and 2034.
So walk through it with me, and if my numbers are wrong, please feel free to correct me. So if I got a 4-ton unit, it's going to cost me $40,000.
Correct.
Get a 30% tax credit on that at the Fed level. It's going to be about 12 grand.
12 grand.
So it's going to cost me 28 grand.
Now you're at 28, yep.
And on the state credit that we've got, you can apply for 5 years.
You can get 25% of that amount. So 25% of 40 grand. Now we're talking about 10 grand over a 5-year period. So 2,000 a year.
You could
Gotcha.
only get the 5,000 if it was a $100,000 system.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's where it
Over 5
caps
years.
out.
So,
So
it
any
caps
system
it at
with-
18 grand.
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
just a,
Yes. After 5 years of consuming that state piece.
Okay. That's what I was trying to get to the number.
Right,
Thank
so it would get the cost down, the credits would get you down from 40,000 to 18,000. Senator Dolezal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Jaspers. Good to see you. Nice to meet you.
Yes, sir.
The math that he just did, we're giving a credit on the credit. So I spent 40 grand for a 4-ton unit. I pulled down my federal credit of 12,000, but I applied 25% to the cost, which is 40 for the state credit. Even though I paid 40, but I got 12 back. But we're taking the policy position in this bill of giving a 25% credit on the cost paid, which is actually 30% more than the net true cost to the person after the tax credit. Am I missing something, or is that correct?
That is correct. That's how we've done it in South Carolina as well.
Okay. So Chairman Jaspers and I share some of the same constituents. Walk me through why we should be taking money from one neighbor and having that neighbor pay for an HVAC system next door.
I am glad you asked that question
Okay,
because
good.
our technology does not do that.
Okay.
Others do. In other words, it only benefits the individual that has that asset. Whereas a geothermal system, because of the impact that we can have on kilowatt KW, your demand, it benefits everyone, all ratepayers across the board.
Walk me through that. I'm familiar with the tech. Actually, from Illinois, have been involved in projects that have installed geothermal. So I think it's good technology. It's expensive technology, but it's good. Walk me through how you think this is going to. If I'm not the buyer, but I am the taxpayer, how does this help me?
Okay, so let me revisit Blue Ridge Electric Co-op up in Clemson, South Carolina. They incentivized geothermal because of the demand, the savings on their demand charge for their wholesale power costs. They incentivized it above and beyond the 25% state tax credit that South Carolina has because of the impact that it had across their entire system. When you have other assets, you're the only one that benefits from generating power on your roof, if we just want to call it rooftop solar. This system, because it reduces their demand charge across their entire system, it benefits the co-op, therefore benefits everyone on their system.
So help me understand then the benefits of the policy system to the state versus there's nothing preventing, I don't think, the co-ops from offering this credit, any credit they want to currently. Is there any of the EMCs or the MEAGs or Georgia Power for that matter?
I'm not familiar with any of the incentives at the co-op or Georgia Power level. No, I do believe Georgia Power does incentivize $1,000 for the system period.
But I'm saying from the state treasury perspective, there's no benefit to lowering the kilowatt hour cost for Sawney EMC, which is my EMC that I'm buying power from. So I'm just curious your perspective on the policy position of doing this at a state level versus doing what you just referenced. I forget who said Duke Power. Is that who you said?
It was an electric co-op in the state, so it's
Blue
member,
Ridge, whoever
member driven, member owned.
And we have a lot of those.
Yeah.
And so maybe I just wonder if that's a place that we might want to see this as opposed to it coming from the state treasurer. And Chairman, I don't want to exclude you from the conversation
Oh, no,
here,
you're
but
not.
that's my last question.
I just think that Senator Dolezal, we do share a lot of great people. I think you look at, at my EMC, I'm at McClellan, when they contract to buy power 4, 5, 8 years in advance, it's all based on the peak. It's not the winter time, it's the summertime. And if they can even drop that slightly, every member of the utility shares in that lower power bill. That's why I was interested in this. Thank you.
We're not going to vote on this today. I know there's a lot of questions. So who all still needs to comment? One more comment here.
It's not a comment, but a question. We're talking about residential application. Is there a commercial application to this?
No, sir.
Not at all.
As far you talking about,
Commercial construction?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes, commercial and industrial.
Okay, like with maybe data centers?
Data centers, yes, sir. I mean, they're going to be large consumers of power. They're going to stress our grid. Again, our technology is one that provides grid resiliency. DOE did a study with mass deployment of ground source heat pumps. It will reduce wholesale power costs by 12%, eliminate 43,000 miles of additional transmission lines, which is enough to crisscross the country 16 times, and in 2050 is valued to be $5.3 trillion.
If a data center has a lot of land, it's a possibility. Of course, electricity rates could go up and make it more economical too. We've seen a little bit of that. Senator Rhett, last comment.
Department of Revenue are the ones who approve the credit,
Yes, sir.
and it can be carried forth the first 5 years, the credit.
that could be used. It does say if your income was below, then you couldn't use it that year. No, it doesn't carry forward. You can only use it the year that you have taxable income above that.
All right. All right, we appreciate you coming. I think there's some questions I'm getting from people, and we need to
Thank you. Thank
not
you.
not
Let
do
me
a
have
vote
your time today.
right now on it. Thank you for bringing this forward.
Sure. Thank you.
I did grow up, my brother, my dad, and my granddad are in the heating and air business, so I understand a little bit about this. But I also want to look out for the taxpayers as well. Representative Rice, you want to come forward? You've made a couple of changes to yours. I think ACCG has stated that they've done some research and they don't have any problem with this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then you also clarified in here that the minor children, that it would definitely stop at age 18. It might have anyway, but on line 104 to 106, you put that in there as well.
That's correct. That's correct. And thank you. The LC number is 501252S. And so, yes, there were 4 concerns that were brought from the committee to me, and one was defining the minor child, and those lines, that was taken care of on lines 56 to 66. Also, there were concerns on the homestead exemption remaining after minor receiving benefit ages out, and that was addressed in lines 104 to 106. And to determine continued eligibility of homestead exemption, we added lines 100 to 103 that states the County Board of Tax Assessors may review eligibility of homestead exemption every 3 years. So, and finally, the question on the amount of homestead exemption for disabled veterans was questioned. And per Legislative Council, this is a homestead exemption that every state is required to extend to disabled veterans, and that number is calculated by the federal government. And the amount for 2025 is $121,812.
All right, yeah, that was an old number that's in here from, what, 2004 or something. I think I remember it was being.
Right.
All right. Questions from the committee?
Specific questions, and you specifically address them.
Yes, well, thank you, and thank you for hearing my bill. I know you have a lot going this week, and so I appreciate it. Being a military community, this bill is very important, just giving that clarity for and predictability for the widows of our disabled veterans. So thank you.
All right, we've got a motion. You said we want to make a motion?
Yes.
Go ahead. Got a motion to pass, a second from Senator Steele. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, motion carries, and I want to thank you too for.
Was this her first visit?
This is her second visit here, but it's her first bill that
First
she's
bill,
passed out.
visit B. I had A on Monday, B today. So thank
All
you
right,
very
who
much.
is
I
your
appreciate
Senate
it.
sponsor for this?
That's going to be Senator Randy Robertson.
All right. Well,
Motion to
good
reconsider.
luck with that.
Thank you.
We've got 186 back again as well. That one, we don't have the Cherokee part in it because there were more questions than we could answer. So it's actually just a one-page thing that has what Senator Hodges had wanted in there on line 26, that adding the air service, which I believe everybody was good with that part in the last meeting, as well as the underlying bill. The other part of that was the motor coaches. So I think there were some questions on that, but that's available too, as you see, as an amendment if we want to add that to it. So the AHOS tax that was kind of controversial, we weren't sure about people swapping from Lost. We've still got one more opportunity to look at that, but not in this particular bill. Any questions? I mean, you can present again, but I think people know what this bill
Yes,
does.
sir, absolutely. It's pretty simple. Eliminate death tax on automobiles, and then Senator Hodges is a one-line amendment as well.
So, other than Senator Hodges, who has a vested interest in this, I don't know if anybody else does with his one amendment. All right, Senator Estevez.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion at the appropriate time.
Okay, let's make sure no questions from the committee. Give y'all a second to look it over. It's a two-pager front and back on here, I guess. So we've got a motion. Is there a second? Second from Senator Hodges. Any other discussion?
No.
Amendments available if the committee wants to look at that. I made that available. There were a lot of questions on that, and I didn't want to put that as part of the bill unless the committee wanted to. So that's certainly the will of the committee. All right, we've got a call for the question. The bill is presented, substitute to House 8, HB 186, LC 50, 1257S. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
Your sponsor?
The original version I talked to Senator Dolezal, so hopefully he'll still carry it with this amendment.
Well, y'all can have that discussion offline and we'll
Thank
see. All right. We've still, one other item we could look at today is House Bill 463 if you want to, or if you want to talk later on it or bring any more information.
I did bring some information based on the questions that were
Okay.
had, and I know you had it on the agenda, so I wanted to be respectful, of course, of the Senate Finance and be here to answer any questions or participate in any discussion. I know we started off, or the committee started off with some measure that was going to help some of our youngest families, and this is a measure that would help some of our most more senior members. Permissive volunteer tax exemption on property tax, and property tax relief for seniors 65 and up. If communities chose to utilize this provision, and of course, if the voters voted on it in December, in November of 2026, should any of this seek favorable consideration.
All right.
But again, I think it has the support of the Council on Aging. I believe ACCG and GMA are both neutral, but have found it a comfortable piece of legislation. And same for our schools, as far as I understand it. I think again, it's permissive. I could read some of the quotes from the article from AARP as I become eligible myself.
All right. Well, why don't we let this is a pretty long article. Why don't we let the committee look at this, and we do have one more opportunity. Senator Dolezal, do you want to?
I've just got a question for the chairman. If we're going to do this on a permissive basis, why make it age restrictive? If we're going to move it and we want to encourage volunteerism, why not have families go out and volunteer to lower their taxes? I'm not saying that as a gotcha. I'm just saying generally, like, if this is good policy for a 70-year-old, I think it's great policy for a 50-year-old.
I think it maybe is consistent with some of the other homesteads that we've seen from our local legislation, where people do that for their senior population, and this encompasses schools and cities and our counties. And if you, I think, look through some of the other areas that are doing it, that's been specifically their target. So
this one says here 60 and over.
I think there are some variances, yes, sir. Again, one of the quotes there is how it, gets me out of the house as 71-year-old stroke survivor and veteran, keeps me social. I think one of the other quotes is, many people are already volunteering at senior centers and community centers, and they could get an incentive for that.
I think it's great. I just wonder if you think about first-time home buyers, all we're hearing about is affordability issues. Seniors tend to volunteer already. Like my mom goes to her niece or her grandkid's school and volunteers. She's already doing it.
All right, Senator Tillery, let me go on to him.
Yeah, that's fine. I was rambling. It's all good.
Thank you, Chairman Blackman. But for the fact that you have FICA involved, why would you not just pay them? So it's $10 an hour. They get a maximum of $500 credit. I guess I'm not understanding why, if you're wanting to help them with their taxes.
Well, there's different avenues to help seniors with their taxes. We offer a $65,000 exemption for 65 and up off an income tax. We do it for 62 and up at $35,000. So we have various and sundry incentives, I think, across the board when it comes to property tax and income tax and even sales tax. I think this is just another avenue of local communities and levying authorities wanted to help and do something a little bit different. Again, it just seemed like a novel approach and a novel idea to consider. I appreciate y'all considering it, frankly, Mr. Chairman. members
All
of the
right.
committee.
One more comment, and we're going to carry this forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I always appreciate my my good friend here, and I know we've raked him over the coals in this one. I do want to say, I was going to make my first point about what Chairman Tillery said, because for $500, you wouldn't even have to send them a 1099, so actually wouldn't impact taxes if the true aim was to get people to earn money, and then it would take it out of property taxes, which I think is more appropriate. Although, if you go to Merriam-Webster's dictionary and you look up the word volunteering, it is just that. You're not supposed to get any meaningful gain from that, monetary or legal. But my other point is, I served as a
thought you were going to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I served as a volunteer firefighter for 33 years, and we have tens of thousands of people throughout the state that do countless hours of work, literally put their lives at risk, contract cancer at a much higher rate, and the list goes on and on. We don't give them any credit for their volunteering. How can we not give credit to a first responder versus someone who might be just helping out in their community, doing something that's non-life threatening?
Yeah, I think you and I had that very discussion about this particular piece of legislation.
Well, no, I'm just talking about a regular volunteer firefighter who average volunteer spends about 20 to 40 hours a week volunteering currently, even if they're not injured, just in general.
We probably volunteer a lot of our time too, don't we?
We'll move on
No,
to
that is okay.
Senator,
Fair enough.
Senator Warwick here. Last comment for sure now.
There's all across the country, and certainly in neighborhoods I represent, older people are being taxed out of their homes. You've got a phenomenon that exists, and it's like an ocean wave that goes through a community, and the folks that have been there need relief because they just the taxes.
We need people to not be opting out of inflation, is what you're saying.
Agreed.
And I agree. Let's create as many pathways. I know I get that question all the time back in my district. What are we going to do about changing the value of our property? And the inability to cover the taxes.
You can change that locally.
All right, we're gonna.
I frankly kind of.
All right, we're gonna cut the comments. We do have an opportunity for one more meeting. We can visit offline on any issues. We will have passed out, I believe, 24 bills, and in addition, we've taken at least 4 other bills and put them into bills. So some of them are double or triple bills, so 28 bills. I think that no other committee can say that, but I'm not sure. Yes, Senator Dolan.
Well, let's check on that. How many can you all say that you guys have passed? How many Senate bills do y'all move out of there?
Well, I think a number of the bills that have been amended over here could be considered with great input from a great many ideas from the Senate.
So we've passed out more Senate bills the second time than.
And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you working with us wholeheartedly.
And I appreciate your work on 136.
I know how to get
y'all
Chairman
worked hard on that.
Dolezal now. I just need to get Chairman Hodges to want something. So I'll work on that.
Mr. Chairman, can I take a point of personal privilege?
Certainly.
I've been on this committee for a few years, and Chairman Blackman, in all seriousness, is very diligent post-crossover day. I think he's in every one of our committee hearings, which I don't know that we can say that about any other chairman, kind of working with their Senate counterparts. And so I do want to acknowledge you for that. And we give you a hard time, but I do appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Chairman.
No, we appreciate your hard work. I know you've got a tough job in culling them down over there. If you could just cull a few more down, it would even make my job easier.
We'll try to do better moving forward, Mr. Chairman.
No, I appreciate all your hard work, seriously. Thank you all, committee. Meeting adjourned.